welcome. Dr. Jason Dean, Brave TV, your source for health, freedom, and knowledge. So, an interesting show today from a logistics standpoint. The show will be very fascinating and educational. However, we have a couple things. We have news items that are happening that we're not covering today. So don't worry, we'll come back around to it, but we don't want to be distracted from what the main source of education we wanted to do this week, which was vaccine driven. Okay. So today we're going to stay on the vaccine topic and we'll handle all the other news items in a different way. Also, Nicolette will be jumping on probably around 12:30 to go over her story. Some of you may have heard of it or heard it. However, she's going to go in detail. We also have a lot of new folks out there joining that need to be and can be educated on the vaccine topic. Not just COVID, because this isn't about COVID. This is about the childhood schedule and the vaccines from the very beginning and how they've damaged our society. So that will be happening. And the reason why she's jumping on is because I'm handling a vehicle issue. So she's going to come on and do that while I'm handling some fires to put out on the side. So just so everyone knows, and then I'll jump back on to help close the show out mostly. So, but we are staying on this. And we are trying to educate as many people as humanly possible to the world of vaccines and what they've done. Because quite honestly, as the world is unraveling right now and people are finding out how much insanity there is and everything else, the vaccine topic is still left alone for the most part. There is not enough attention put on what the childhood vaccine schedule is doing. And there's also several topics to the childhood vaccine. It's not just the vaccine. It's not just an MMR. It's not just a DTaP. It's not just influenza. It's not just whooping cough. You have the vaccine itself that the actual theory and idea of how a vaccine or immunization works is not correct. It's false. It's not real science. That's just one. Number two, what about the human DNA that's put in it? And by the way, people aren't told about that. They're not briefed on that before they get it plunged into their body or their child's body. How about the parasitic issue with vaccines? Yes, there are parasites in vaccines. Now, are you going to go out and find tremendous amounts of data on that? No. And if you bring it up, people are just going to shoo you away. Mainstream medicine will call you a lunatic, etc. 4, glyphosate. Glyphosate in the vaccines. Even Dr. Stephanie Seneff discusses glyphosate in the vaccines. By the way, a special show on Friday. All right. So the regular show will be at noon on Friday, this Friday. But at 3 o'clock, I believe Dr. Stephanie Seneff will be on. I'm going to do a special live at 3 o'clock Friday afternoon. Okay. Really important because we have to talk about the glyphosate issue. Okay, we have to talk about the glyphosate. It's very important. So, let's jump in deeper today. Let me take some water first in my plastic water bottle. The microplastics is a whole other story in the vaccines. Okay. Now, let me give you another patient example. So my wife, and this leads to the brainwashing of medicine and vaccines. How many people out there? And by the way, do me a favor. These videos are designed, I'm educating as if, and these are meant for distribution out. Distribution out to your friends, to your family, to colleagues, to strangers you meet. Here's a question for you. Why don't you take a business card? Business cards are really inexpensive to buy. I mean, you can buy hundreds, if not thousands, for under $100 now. Here's an idea for everybody. Why don't you get business cards with a QR code or a website on them, or something that will take the person to information, this information, other information. Share that with them. Leave it places. Give it to a waiter, waitress. Give it to a hostess. Give it to someone, a service area you're going to. Give it to those people so you can help them. My phone is going off like crazy. So back to my wife's patient. This is years and years and years ago. The person came in and they had a child. They were working to have a child for a very long time. The person was a nurse. They came in with their child and they decided to vaccinate their child. Now, my wife has educated this person forever not to not do vaccines, because we don't educate people not to do vaccines. We educate people on what vaccines are. I can say don't get them. I'm saying it from my father's standpoint. As a doctor, different story. Okay? So she was educating, okay? Sorry, I'm handling fires as I'm going. Putting out fires. So my wife educated. They then decided to go get vaccines. I think it was like 8 in 1 at one visit. 8 in 1 at one visit. And the patient came in and the baby was inflamed, completely inflamed, had a reaction, and they said, please fix. And my wife goes, did you just go get a bunch of vaccines? Yes. The reason I bring this up, and it's a long, long story that I'm not going to draw it out because I don't know every detail of it. My wife would know every detail. People are psychologically, they've been brainwashed. They've been brainwashed. It's that simple, everybody. They have been brainwashed. When I say brainwashed, I'm talking about programming. How many people out there have somebody that they've been trying to tell, and the programming is just like so thick, and they're like, I can't get through to them. I can't get through to them. What's happening? Why can't I get through to them? You can't get through to them because literally they're programmed. You have to work to deprogram. That is not an easy job, everybody. Deprogramming is not an easy job at all. But to do it, to win, you cannot force them to change their mind. You will never, ever force somebody to change their mind unless you use pain and drugs, and that's a very bad CIA operation. The only way to properly change a mind is over time. Give them information, not pummel them. Give them information over a period of time. Education and information. Don't tell them you're horrible. I told you. It doesn't work. And by the way, even while you're educating, they might do things that go against the education you're trying to give them. All right? Keep working at it. Keep educating. Even if you feel like nobody is listening, keep educating. It's so, so important. Now, I'm going to bring this up again because I want everyone to know about it. I might pound this every day because every time I think we've gone over it too much, I realize we haven't gone over it too much. NVIC.org, the National Vaccine Information Center, NVIC.org. Tremendous amounts of information, laws and policies, news, vaccines. And again, I'm going to bring you down to this part right here. I'm going to scroll down. You can either click on Learn More here, or you can click on any one of the states. Okay? Any one of the states. Now, I'm just going to show you. I'm not going to do it for you. Right? Let's go to Colorado. I'm just going to show you. I'm not going to go in and read it all. Colorado has philosophical, religious, and medical exemption. I just click on the Colorado. This brings me up to Colorado state vaccine requirements. You scroll down, you look at what you can use and what you can't use. Here's K through 12 vaccine requirements and exemptions. General information, vaccine requirements, exemption information. Read through it. That is your job. Exemption information. There you go. Now, I'm not going to read through all that, but there you go. I don't know this. I just happen to look at it right now, but I mean, it's pretty. It looks pretty simple on the outside. I want to obtain a certificate of non-medical exemption. That would be philosophical or religious. Or I want to obtain a certificate of medical exemption. Now, I'm not saying it's this easy. I'm just saying it looks easy. This is an exemption based on religious belief whose teachings are opposed to immunizations to a personal belief that is opposed to immunizations. You click on it. And there's 2 ways to obtain. So you just keep going through this. There you go. So again, I'm not saying it's simple. I'm not just saying it's super easy. I'm saying there it is. You have to keep taking yourself through and understanding how it works. Again, do you know about vaccine laws in your state? It is not required for your child to go to school, your grandchild to go to school, daycare, etc. But you have to know the rules. You have to know the laws of it. Okay. Now, next, I'm going to sparsely go through this because I'm trying to do my best to slow the pace down, because that's what I hear most often. Slow the pace down, Dr. Dean. So I'm slowing the pace down. I probably won't even get through this whole thing. I'm going to take, so this PowerPoint was done by my friend Gerald Brolies, right? Who I talked about the other day. So I'm going to take you through some of the stuff that I'm just going to go through some basic stuff that I think is important. Breaking away from the herd. For years, I constantly heard vaccines are safe and effective. Constantly heard that immunizations are required for school entry in California, according to the California Department of Public Health Immunization Branch. He was in California when he wrote this. But then I began to wonder why my nephew couldn't speak until his teenage years, why my friends' children have chronic eczema, why my friends' children have food allergies to nuts, soy, eggs, dairy, seafood, or Jell-O, what causes epilepsy, seizures, and autism, why all schools are now nut-free, what causes sudden infant death syndrome. Why would vaccination have to be mandated, especially if touted as safe and effective? Why do elementary school students have so many health issues? That's some of the information. Efficacy. Efficacy measurability. okay, a vaccinated versus an unvaccinated study, which has not been done, would be reliable. A vaccine versus saline placebo study would be reliable. Vaccine versus previously approved vaccine would be unreliable. You can't use that. Vaccinated versus aluminum contained placebo is also unreliable. You can't do that. Titer testing is not reliable. All right. Now, everyone will tell you that modern vaccines have saved lives and saved us from horrible, horrible childhood diseases. Well, that's not true. Measles. Measles was hot. So all the way to the left there is 1900. It peaked in 1916. And then it starts going down. You see a little arrow there in 1964 towards the end. Measles vaccine was introduced in 1963. The measles vaccine, measles had declined 99.6% before the vaccine was in widespread use. So the measles vaccine was not why measles disappeared and was eradicated. And by the way, this is from the CDC. These are actually sourced from the United States Department of Health and the CDC. Not ours, their research. Pertussis. Again, all this comes from CDC and government, United States health organizations. Their information. Whooping cough deaths had declined by more than 99.74% before a vaccine was in widespread use. So it started, 1900 was they started tracking. 1915-ish was when it peaked. It started going down. The late 1940s, 48, 49 is when vaccine was used, when it was already going away. Titer testing. So antigen-specific, this is for everybody out there who wants to get their kids tested all the time, especially even in the autism community, okay? Antigen-specific antibody titers do not correlate with protection, just so everyone knows, okay? Specific levels of HI antibody titer post-vaccination with inactivated influenza virus vaccines have not been correlated with protection from influenza illness, but the antibody titers have been used as a measure of vaccine activity. In some human challenge studies, antibody titers greater or equal to 1 to 40 have been associated with protection from influenza illness up to 50% of subjects. Why even test titers when they do not correlate with protection? Because that's what they tell you. Scarlet fever compared to communicable diseases. So scarlet fever was the highest. It's in red. Scarlet fever peaked in what looks like about 1956, 57. And then it very quickly disappeared. But they didn't create a scarlet fever vaccine. Why is that? It was the worst one. Why is that? So if you look at the virus, if you consider there's viruses, as we know they're exosomes, which is, it still falls under the virus term, so people can understand that. I will go into exosomes again on a different show, not today. Diseases, pathogens, bacteria, viral exosomes, and more. They tend to show up in places where there's poverty, which is poor hygiene, poor sanitation, dirty water, and starvation, lack of food. Scurvy and measles. Now, everyone knows scurvy, okay, lack of vitamin C, but it's actually a sugar disease. So everyone knows scurvy is a sugar disease. Scurvy is more abundant today than it was here on the graph in 1901. So the measles is in the black. So measles, this is tracking from 1901. Measles peaked at about 1916. And then scurvy went up with it a little bit. Vitamin C was after the decline. This was England scurvy and measles mortality rates. All right. Again, vitamin C discovery was around 1928. Scurvy was already being eradicated. Vaccine efficacy has never been proven. Nearly every prescribed drug undergoes a phase 1, 2, 3, and 4 trials. Phase 1 is to assess safety profile in healthy patients. Phase 2 is to test effectiveness in patients with targeted disease. Phase 3, test drug and placebo on 2 separate groups of patients with targeted disease. The gold standard in research design is a double-blind, randomized, placebo-controlled trial. The FDA does not require vaccines to demonstrate efficacy. Separation from a saline placebo. So again, I'm going to say that again. The gold standard in research design is the double-blind, randomized, placebo-controlled trial. The FDA does not require vaccines to demonstrate efficacy at all. Okay? So I'm going to bring this in, all right? Nicolette's jumping in right now. I'm gonna hold Nicolette in the back just for a second because I'm gonna finish these last 2 slides. She's gonna come on and talk about her stuff while I disappear for a little bit in an okay way. Apparently, I froze on camera. Don't worry, I'm still here. My camera's been freezing up, which has been very strange lately. So I'll get that fixed potentially. Vaccine efficacy study. What would such a clinical study look like? 2 groups, 1 vaccinated, 1 unvaccinated. Release a communicable virus or bacteria for exposure, and then observe results. However, receiving the recommended measles vaccine may cause a patient to develop disease and shed onto others, which Disneyland was the perfect experiment for this. Vaccinated individuals can spread disease for several weeks after receiving a live virus vaccine. Again, all stuff at the bottom, the actual research itself. There is no currently known vaccine that confers lifelong immunity. None at all. Okay, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to bring up Nicolette because my camera froze. Perfect day. Today's fun. Today's a game. It really is. Hi, Nicolette. Can you hear me okay? I can't hear you because you muted yourself.
You're frozen.
I know that I'm frozen. And I will fix that in a little bit. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to give this to you like 5 minutes early so I can go handle my stuff. You can tell in depth your story. I will work on my camera as well when I come back to actually kind of help you wrap this thing up. I have tons more information that's not going to happen today because literally, and you know this, I have so much stuff even from day 1 that I still have not gone through, like from Monday. Like my Monday stuff is still not backing up, but because, we're trying to slow this down and go back to the basics, which is a good thing. So I still have a ton of stuff I'm not even remotely close to that I'm not going to do today, but we're going to unwind this over a long period of time. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put you on full steam so that I can also work on my camera as I jump off. And the rest is yours to go deep into your story and tell them how much of a radical pro-vaccine person you were. How does that sound?
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm in a mess in my office. Why is it all glitchy? Hold on a second. Hopefully it clears up. Okay. For those that don't know, my name is Nicolette. I'm a mom to 2 kids. I was 100% pro-vaccine, and now I'm an ex-vaxxer. I'll be honest, I didn't feel like doing this today. Dr. Dean needed me to come on, and I said, I'm dealing with those two kids because then I'll go into the story, while things have been done that have helped heal my son, there is still a lot of stuff to continue working on. Um, Nothing is a miracle. It is not cured. We don't say that here. However, we still have very trying days, and today happens to be one of them. So, um, can you guys see me all right? It's the only time I'm gonna look at the comments today because I was told not to. I just want to make sure that I'm not frozen like he was. Mm. Oh, I hate the lag. All right, well, I'll just go into it. I grew up with a pediatric nurse as my mom, and I don't doubt, or like, I don't fault my mom. Many things, we all have fallen under the indoctrination at some point or another. She trusted the people that she worked for, the doctors. Um, it's I don't fault her. She doesn't and didn't recognize signs of um vaccine injury in not only her own kids, but myself, or like, not only me, but other kids that would come into the office. Many doctors still dismiss it, medical doctors. Even now, there's one that I just had a conversation with that thinks that technology is the reason for the rise in autism, which just simply is not true. Um, so just to go back, I'll let's go into my story first, not just my son's. So I grew up, I was born in 93, and I don't know how many vaccines I had. I probably had at least 30 over my life, including things like, well, all the regular ones. And then I was in one of the first groups of when the Gardasil vaccine came out. And the Gardasil vaccine, as you guys probably know, there's a lot of lawsuits happening with it. Um, a lot of people have had many injuries, and myself included. I suffer from PCOS, which, for people that don't know, it's polycystic ovarian syndrome. And then I also have endometriosis. That was not medically diagnosed because they literally have no other way of diagnosing it other than to do a laparoscopy, which is a laser surgery essentially, and take a biopsy from inside. But it's really messed up the way our insurance works. They wanted me to do 3 months of um, an appetite suppressant, basically a stimulant, and a 3 months of birth control, just to prove that I might still need the surgery to diagnose endometriosis. And then in that case, there is no cure for that type of thing, which we don't like to use the word cure here. There is help. Don't worry. However, it's extremely painful. So I truly believe that those things stemmed from having the Gardasil vaccine. My mood changed over the years. I was diagnosed with ADD, and for those that don't know, though, people that are diagnosed with ADD or ADHD are technically on the spectrum. When that happened, I was in 3rd grade. Um, and it was just a matter of, oh, she talks too much in class, she's hyper, you need to get her tested, she won't do her homework. Come to find out, I wasn't challenged enough. I'm practically a genius, not to toot my own horn. However, I didn't want to do the simple work like handwriting worksheets and stuff that I already felt that I knew. So instead, they turned around and gave me stimulants growing up. I remember being on Concerta. I remember being on Adderall. At one point, they tried all different ones. I did not like the way that it made me feel. I remember my mom had a pot on her front porch that had a flower in it. And there's days that I would literally grab my medicine, and as I'm walking out the door, because I lived a block and a half away from school, I would walk to school. I would literally hide it in the dirt because I didn't want to take it. My parents found out that I didn't want to take it. Eventually, we completely stopped me on it when it got to the point where I was dangerously underweight. And when I say that, I want you guys to like put in perspective that I don't know if you have kids now or what you weigh, but I'm sure you can all think back to your high school days of what you weighed in 8th grade. So 13 years old, going into freshman year, I weighed 43 pounds. I played sports and stuff, but I was practically skin and bones. I don't know how I had any muscle to even play sports or energy, but I was ridiculously thin, to the point where when I look back at pictures now, it's a scary thing. So going into high school, I was taken off those stimulants, and a few years, like everything got so much better. I was at a healthy weight. I was playing sports. I wasn't the best student still, but I was okay. I was decent. And then I think it was around my sophomore, junior year when I received the Gardasil vaccines. And I intuitively knew that I did not like shots. I remember even when I was like 8 years old and stuff, screaming at the doctor's office, kicking, screaming, not wanting the vaccines and stuff. And I remember my mom saying, "You embarrass me at my work," because that's the pediatrician's office that she worked at. And it was I remember not wanting vaccines to the point where with the Gardasil vaccine, my mom would come home with the vaccine, being a nurse and being able to administer it, just so I was a little bit more comfortable. And I would literally be like talking on the phone or something. And I don't want to say she blindsided me, and nobody come after my mom. She did it because my mom was diagnosed with cervical and ovarian cancer, and they lied. They flat out lied. They said that the HPV vaccine, Gardasil, can prevent females from getting cervical cancer. And so when my mom dealt with both ovarian and cervical cancer, 2 different times, so it was 2 years in between the two, um, she wanted what's best for her daughters. And I don't doubt my mom. Like, I don't fault my mom for that. I mean, we all make decisions where we think we have our kids' best interest. So after that, I got super, super depressed in high school, to the point where I didn't like my self-worth. I didn't know my self-worth whatsoever. I cried myself to sleep at night to the point where I was suicidal at the end of high school. I quit all sports. I slept all the time. I was always so tired, and they just kept telling me, "It's iron. It's iron. She's anemic." It is it was rough. I'm just now coming out of that, dealing with PCOS and endometriosis and the iron instability, which I'll go into even further with my son, because I was on iron tablets for years. I've gotten hundreds of vials of blood drawn, trying to do a bunch of tests because to this day, I know now and I'm healing, but to this day, I was like, something is not right with me. You just intuitively know that something is not right. And they just kept telling me that it was iron. So fast forward, I met my husband in 2014. We quickly got married. Well, not quickly got married. We quickly moved in together, and we got engaged within 6 months. And then I was at the point in my life, which, yes, I was only like 21, but I was at the point in my life where I was like, I've done my partying days. Like I said, I didn't know my self-worth. So I was a wild child at the end of my teens and into my 20s. When I met my husband, it was a time when I was like, nope, I'm done with partying. I had that maternal instinct of just wanting a child. So we didn't even wait to be married, but that's when I started to run into major issues with the PCOS. We kept trying. It got to the point where it was 9 months of trying, and we had already had a date set for our wedding, which was supposed to be August of 2016. That I said, okay, if I don't get pregnant this month, um, you know, we're just gonna go back on birth control, and then we'll wait until after the wedding to try again. Which now I know better than on birth control as well. But I finally, I thought I was pregnant. Go to the hospital because I had a insane pain, and I remember them taking a quick ultrasound and just being like, it's a cyst on your ovary and it probably burst, and that was probably the pain that you felt. And I was like, okay, all right. They said I wasn't pregnant. They did all those tests, but they flat out said that if there's cysts on your ovaries, they're so common that practically means your ovaries are working. That's what I was told. That it couldn't be further from the truth. Um, so anyway, fast forward, I did get the positive pregnancy test and I was super ecstatic. We then welcomed our little boy in June of 2016. He was only a few days early, but the reason why he was early is because I was testing. Well, they made me do a 24-hour urine test because they said that they had found protein in my urine. So, if for people that don't know, it's when they send you home with a jug and they say you have to pee in this for 24 hours, keep it in the fridge, take it to a lab, and then they will test it and you will get the results. So they had me do that and they called me. I remember it was about 7, 8 o'clock on a Tuesday morning, which I had worked at a bar at a time. So normally I would be sleeping at this time. Um, and I remember them saying, hey, we want you to come in for a non stress test. All they do is just hook up the monitor around your belly and stuff to monitor the baby. They're like, we found protein in your urine and we're afraid that your kidneys will start failing. So we want to get you in for a non-stress test. At this time, I'm far enough along that if the baby comes, it's okay. So go there. They're like, we don't like the movement of the baby. I said, well, normally I would be sleeping right now, and I haven't eaten anything since 6 p.m. the day prior. So 14 hours without eating. So they give me a bottle of water and say, okay, we'll watch you for a little bit longer because water's going to do anything. I don't know. But by noon that day, they sent me to the hospital to have my water broken. Everything was fine. And then it got to the point where I started almost seizing. My blood pressure completely topped out the charts. It was very scary. I'm so thankful for the nurses. I'm pretty sure that the doctor would have rushed me to um an emergency C-section if it wasn't for the nurses being on top of things and um giving me magnesium. They had magnesium like on standby ready to go. I was never diagnosed as preeclamptic. I was never diagnosed with eclampsia. I was none of this thing. So, um, afterwards, they said I became eclamptic in the moment, whatever that means. Horrible, traumatic birth experience. My labor that was progressing completely fine then turned into an absolute nightmare. I had blood clots and hemorrhaging so bad. I finally gave birth after like 14 hours, but because of the magnesium, so magnesium being a muscle relaxer, they then had to re-induce me. After breaking my water, everything like I said was progressing, so then they had to give me Pitocin to re-induce me. Um, Finally gave birth to Bradley. They took my blood and tested it and all this other stuff. and they said that I'll never forget this number. They said that my hemoglobin was at 7.2. They said normally we like hemoglobins to be up in 14s or 15s for pregnant women. And they said that's drastically low. We need to get iron in you. And I distinctively remember, this is from Dr. or not doctor, but Morley Robbins, him saying that the healthiest babies were born at between 7 and 9 on the hemoglobin scale. So that just tells you a little bit of all of the things that the Gardasil affected my reproductive system so much, to the point where then afterwards, um, I had so many issues after giving birth to Bradley, that it came in between me and my husband because sex was painful. You don't have the libido and stuff that you want. And I remember going to the doctor afterwards and saying I had lost all my baby weight right after Bradley, and then I blew up like a balloon. I was more than I was more weight than I was when I was pregnant with Bradley a few months after having Bradley, probably 6 months or so. And I remember going to the doctor and saying something's not right. And this is when I was technically diagnosed with PCOS, but I wasn't at first. They literally were, I was growing chest hair, chin hairs, all these other things. I gained all this weight. I couldn't lose it, only for this doctor to turn around and say, "Welcome to being a mom." I said, "No, no, no. At the age of 22, my body should be able to bounce back from a pregnancy." Um, so she was like, "Oh, well, let's put you on some birth control. It sounds like you have too much testosterone." This is not how this works, by the way. Sounds like you have too much testosterone. So let's give you some birth control with estrogen to try to balance out your hormones. Did blood test. Oh, and we're going to put you on iron. Continue to put you on these iron tablets that your body does not actually take. So that's when, okay, I have a new baby. I'm still pro vaccine at this point. I had no clue. I was to the point, and I wish I was looking for the post earlier. I was to the point where I was on Facebook, and I specifically remember writing this post. I said, I want to know if it's okay if I ask people if their kids are vaccinated. I said, Bradley's first birthday is coming up. So this would have been 2017. I said, Bradley's first birthday is coming up, but we're thinking of having his birthday party before he goes to his 12-month checkup. That's the post that I wrote. And I had people, including my old basketball coach, who's now my naturopath, saying that you should really do your research. Shedding, if anything, the kids that are vaccinated are the ones that are the problem. My old basketball coach said something like along the lines of, if she has any say in it, her grandkids will not be vaccinated. And I was like, what the hell are these people talking about? I was literally wanting to just like push them to the side. I was like, these people are crazy. I remember flat out saying, I'd rather have a child with autism than have a kid with the measles or something, die from the measles. I wrote that in a Facebook post at one point. And this is truly when God was like, sit down, shut up, learn something, humble yourself. And Bradley got his MMR shot at 12 months. He also got a slew of other shots. He got all of his shots up until 1 year appointment. So, but I know for a fact that the MMR shot was the turning point. So he got his MMR shot at his 1 year appointment, and I instantly saw a regression. I have videos of my son saying "dad," and he used to say "dad" very clear. It wasn't "dada" or nothing like that. I have a video of me literally saying, "No, say mama," and he's going "dad, dad." And that was at like 9 months. After getting the MMR shot, that all stopped. It was complete silence other than crying and drooling, and I saw that instant regression. Now, at the time, was I thinking possibly that it's the vaccine? Yes, but I was more, okay, what can I do about this? So we then took him to get evaluated, which for people that don't know, the evaluation process is insane. Um, I remember waiting months and months to even get an appointment. And he finally got in for a 7-hour appointment. So the way that it works is you went to this facility, doctor facility, they have all these different therapists. So it's okay, you're going to meet with this doctor. Then you're going to go to this other room. This psychologist is going to observe him. This OT is going to observe him. So 7 hours. 7 hours long, and it was just it was torture. I was so upset. I didn't want to face reality. I was in denial of the fact that my kid had autism. I'm like, okay, he'll talk. He's a slow learner. He gets frustrated because he can't talk yet. And they talked to me like I was stupid. The one doctor flat out said, "Yeah, I've seen this before. It was the MMR shot." Flat out, doctor from University of Michigan told me that it was the MMR shot and that she has seen this multiple times before. So continued on with that, he got the diagnosis of nonverbal ASD. They turned around and then hit me with this giant bill. And at the time, we're a new family. I was not working. My husband was working full time. However, after the military, he never got any college degree or anything like that. And after the military, it was one of those things where because he was infantry, there's not a whole lot of jobs that need people to knock down and kick in doors. So it didn't really set him up for a career. So he was making decent money, but it wasn't it like right now would not be enough to live off of. So they turned around and hit me with a bill. And I'll never forget this because I was just in tears thinking that I wasn't going to be able to help my son and that was the only path of what was needed. So they handed me a bill and they handed me a plan. And they said, here is, we want to do, I think it was 48 hours of ABA therapy. It was 6 hours of speech therapy and so many hours of OT. It all equaled 63 hours total a week that they wanted my son to do these therapies, and it would equal $90,000 a month that my husband's insurance did not cover. So I was like, that was more than my husband made at the time. And I was so upset thinking that, well, I even asked them, and this is when things started to click a bit. I asked them, I said, um, why can't I just do the OT and speech therapy through the school system? We actually live in a county that has very good, it's called the ISD, Intermediate School District, and um, we have a very good early childhood program and stuff for special needs kids. And they said, well, that's not really the same. And I was like, wait. This person has their speech therapy license. This person has their speech therapy license, but they're not qualified because they work for the school and not the doctor's office. So you just want me to pay for it, right? Um, and they didn't like that. They kept calling me and they're like, we have to plan when we're gonna start this and blah blah blah. And I was like, okay, well, my son is not even 3 yet. He is not going to be out of my house and out of my view getting treated by these people for more than what a full-time job is under the age of 3. And I was so distraught because at the time I had no clue what to do. Um, and it was just horrible. Got very depressed. You blame yourself of the fact that you didn't listen, but you put the fault on yourself. And then it got to the point where I was lonely because my husband was working 90 plus hours a week. And I describe it as, I talk to it was like talking to a wall. My son was not registering things that I said. I would try to correct him or try to do stuff with him, and everything was just seemed like 10 times harder. We'd go every so often, we'd get invited to a birthday party or something, and I'll never forget the one of it was a pool party, and my son is loves the pool. He loves the water. Sensory friendly type of thing. And so he loves it. And, when you have a pool party or something scheduled where you pay for the place for a certain amount of time, they said, okay, you have an hour and a half to swim. Then we're going to put you all in this room to do cake and eat pizza and stuff. Meanwhile, the pool is literally right there. You can see it. But the kid has to stay in the room and eat. And once it was time to get out of the pool, it just wasn't happening. So I specifically remember holding my son, trying to keep him from banging his head on this hard tile floor when everybody else is watching, and thinking, why is my son not able to just go like the other kids? All these other parents have no problem saying, hey, it's time to eat, get out of the pool. And I am sitting there struggling to get my son to just listen to the basic things. And it's so much more than a tantrum, which is why I'm very empathetic to. I don't care if it's the grocery store, I don't care if it's a restaurant. I did not go out to eat for 4 years because of my son, because it's very overstimulating and it's very hard. Um, now, so I don't fault people that I see a kid playing with an iPad. Guess what? When we do occasionally go out to eat, my son has the iPad in front of him because it was probably the only piece that gave me sanity to be able to finally find a restaurant that we can go to, and he'll sit there as long as he can watch something while eating. So I don't doubt people for stuff like that. I don't ever judge people for that, because I remember days of trying not to use the iPad and having people look at us because my son is having a fit at the table. And that is a shitty fucking feeling, because you have the older people that are like, oh, that kid needs discipline, or my kid would never behave like that in a restaurant. And it is, yes, it's a simple task, but not to them. And people don't understand that. So, fast forward, I needed change. I was super depressed. I was taking Bradley through the school system. There was a play group, and it was a speech therapy play group. There was a speech therapist that met with him. It was once a week. We'd go there for like 2-3 hours every Monday. And there was a mom there, and her son, I think, was a little bit older than Bradley, but not much. And I noticed a difference in him. And I said, what are you doing? And she goes, well, I found a zeolite product, and it just seemed like a light bulb went off. And I said, oh, I had read about that on Facebook, but I hadn't pulled the trigger because, like I said, we were struggling financially, and it was $100 a bottle. And it just seems kind of like, I don't know, people called it a miracle in a bottle, and all these people were hyping it up so much that I'm like, okay, this is like snake oil. This is salesman. Like, it just seemed too good to be true. But when I met this other mom and her telling me that it made the world of a difference, I told my husband, I said, all right, I'm doing it. I know he can't afford it, but I'm doing it. And I did it. And let me tell you, that was the best $100 I have ever spent in my life. I bought a million things, bought this house, whatever, but the best money spent. And it made the world of a difference. Within 4 days, Well, first I tested it on myself, just so you guys know. I got so itchy. Detoxing symptom of this. I got so itchy. And I was like, okay, I don't know what, my whole body was itchy. And I go on this little forum thing on Facebook where everybody's taking this stuff and they're like, that's parasites dying off in your body. The heavy metal detox, parasites hold in heavy metals. And I was like, what? What is this? But I was like, that means it's working, right? Took an Epsom salt bath, the itching seemed to subside, and I was like, okay. So I gave it to my son, and it was a spray. It's a matter of, hey, just spray it in his milk or on his food. He was able to take it, and eventually got to the point where he would let me spray it just in his mouth. But when I tell you that it really was like a light bulb came on and the flip of the switch, my son was saying words within a week, 4 weeks. He started speaking, and then progressing, he was saying words and sentences. So he's about 3.5 now at this point, I'd say, when he's really, really talking. And he's saying stuff like, he wanted to help me make my coffee one morning. And I said, okay, hold on. I put the cream in it so it wasn't going to be hot. And I was like, okay, you want to help me stir it? And he goes, agitate. And I was like, what? Like, this isn't a case of my son just learned these words. It's a case of he's now able to speak the words. He's had them up here the entire time, but the wires, the neurons, and everything are finally connecting, that it's helping. Like, you could just tell the world of a difference. Things were actually working. So fast forward, we still continue with this. I started to learn more about things. The fact that the brain actually is connected to the gut. My child was never had regular bowel movements. He was either constipated, which I just said the other day on live. When he was first constipated, a doctor tried to tell me to take a, or just give him prune juice. Like, yeah, because that solves the microbiome and stuff like that. He was either constipated or it was complete opposite, where he would have liquid diarrhea in his diapers. And so I started to learn more about the microbiome in the gut, realized about parasites and heavy metals, which is why I started working with Dr. Dean. And we now have the kids products that we do, because while I loved the zeolite product, it wasn't enough. It didn't have binders in it. It didn't help all of the problems. It didn't kill off enough parasites. Like, it wasn't parasites are kind of on a spectrum themselves. You have the very little ones that are microscopic that you can't see, that are in the muscles, and then you have the large intestinal ones and stuff. That wasn't enough. So we built the products that are under here. There's a reason why we have them in protocols. But this is why I'm here. This is why I started working with Dr. Dean. If you guys have been watching him, 2020 election, I called in just to update him on the election. And I remember being so proud to tell him, hey, I've detoxed my son and he's speaking. This was before I even met Dr. Dean. And then once learning more and talking with him, I realized a whole slew of other things that not only helped my son, but helped me. And going back to iron, and these are coming back, by the way, so everybody can get excited. I don't know when, but soon. The kids' vitamins. Dr. Dean used to have a video on the page when he sold the kids' vitamins. It was a set of 3. It was Brainy Play, Tough Play, and I forget what the other one is. But he was going through the ingredients on the video, and he said, not iron, because iron is toxic. He said copper, not iron. I was like, the hell what is he talking about? The iron's toxic, because I have been taking iron tablets for years. And I started researching that. 80 vials, I'm not even joking when I tell you this, 80 vials of blood later, 3 OBGYNs and 2 regular general practitioner doctors all taking blood Me all telling them, hey, I want to test my cortisol levels. I want to test this. I want to test all of these things. And they just kept coming back with, oh, your iron's low. I said, well, I don't know why it's still low, considering I have been taking iron tablets for probably 6 years at this point. Why is my body not absorbing it? Why is my hemoglobin not going up? What is going on? Once I found Dr. Dean's little video talking about that, it then looked into why iron was bad for me. Iron wasn't helping the mitochondria of my cells rebuilding. Copper does. I had something called iron overload in my body that was causing my inositol, I think is the word, levels, and my all of these things to get out of whack, and it was a huge problem, but nobody even mentioned copper to me. So I started taking copper. Guess what? My insulin resistance, which is what PCOS is, started to resolve itself. A lot of things cleared up for me. I had more energy. Things that they said were my lack of iron and my anemia making me tired. No, my cells are working again after copper. So all this to say is I've made a lot of mistakes with both myself and my son. I have learned from my mistakes. People ask me all the time, what do you regret in life? And I don't regret a thing. I can revisit, as I just did, those hard times with my son. I can picture my son struggling. And you would think that I would regret that. Do I regret putting my son through that? To an extent, but I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't go back and change it because I wouldn't have learned. I wouldn't be helping other people. I would not be sitting here today with other people in the comments saying, your protocol has helped my grandson. Your protocol has helped my son. We had somebody write a review one day, and I just started crying because it was a 12-year-old, and I know 12 years, I dealt with it for about 3 of my son being at his worst, not talking and self-harming and stuff, and 12 years to go through that, I'm sure was very, very lonely. And their son now asks for our protocol and calls them his smart drops because it helps his brain think clearly. My son is now able to talk. You guys have met him. He's popped in on the show a few times. He tells us all about aliens, and I I learned a new term. I think you guys know about indigo children, but there's a thing called diamond children that I wasn't aware of. And I truly believe that that might be my son, where, they're kind of above average in their smarts, but it's unworldly. Like they've never been on this world before. Their past lives weren't here, but they're here to help and heal. And I believe that that's what my son is here for. And I know there's going to be other people that are going to come in and say, oh, this is all that 5D BS. And, but that I don't care. Throw out the diamond child thing that I just said or whatever. I absolutely can tell you that natural health was the absolute way to go. And when I hear of anybody, I have multiple friends that I'm helping now with asthma and all these other things that are vaccine injuries. And, one friend, his son is always sick. And I'm like, his microbiome's destroyed. He has ear infections and they're giving him antibiotics. And I'm like, okay, do what you got to do right now, but then we're going to help rebuild. We're going to help detox that out and rebuild. And this is why I stress so much when it comes to ivermectin or any of the other drugs. Why would you not go to the root of what that drug is? Why would you not? Why would you not want it to get it at the purest form and not with all the fillers and the chemicals? And I understand because people went after Dr. Dean for this. Water is a chemical. Everything's a chemical. Yes, they're chemical compounds with element compounds. I get it. However, we're talking about synthetic chemicals. Why would you not want to go to the root of that? I just don't. I'll never understand that, and this is why I harp on things like that. I just pray that my story helps others. It's not about the products. I know the products help. We have enough testimonies, reviews and stuff on the page, people on video, people in comments telling their stories of it helping children. But I would love to get to a place where people don't have to clean up the mess. The mess never happens to begin with, which is why we're still here and trying to educate on the dangers of these vaccines to begin with. Um, Now that my son is able to talk, this is where I was going with this. He says things um and can describe things. Like yesterday, I gave him a haircut. He still has sensory issues. Don't get me wrong, things aren't all worked out. I'm giving him a haircut and he goes, "That feels really pokey." And I don't like it. It feels like it's stabbing me in the head, which I was using shears like it wasn't even scissors or nothing like that. But he's able to tell me those things, so the frustration is taken out. He tells me that when he's overstimulated, he still has this tick. Excuse me, I kind of just burped into the microphone. Anyway, he has this tick where he gets really excited and he'll go like this to the back of his head. And when I ask him, I'm like, "Hey, slow down. I understand you're excited. What else can we do with our hands? The stimming activity, stop him from scratching himself." He can tell me, "I feel like I have fire brain right now," which is overstimulation, which I get too. You can you can ask the mod group. There's times where I'm so deep into research and my mind is bouncing all over the place and I have a million subjects that I'm like, "Oh, well, this connected to this." Very similar to that meme from the guy from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and you have all those lines. That's how my brain works. I'm vaccine injured just like my son. Everybody on this chat is vaccine injured to an extent, whether you know it or not. I have friends all the time tell me, their kid has allergies. "Oh, well, it's just some pollen." No, it's not. Our ancestors and ourselves have been around pollen since the beginning of time. There's absolutely no reason for you to feel completely under the weather with sinus pressure and a headache and stuff every time the pollen levels are high. That's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. But we all have been brainwashed and indoctrinated into this. Dr. Dean went over peanut allergies and egg allergies. Do you guys not see a heightened? I hear all the time Gen Xers say, "Oh, we didn't have peanut allergies growing up." Maybe one kid every like 200, one out of every 200. Now you see kids with it all the time. These are all vaccine injuries that people need to understand. And I'm gonna go into the science of it a little bit because I have been rambling. I know you guys love to hear the story, and I appreciate you taking the time to listen. Um, Something like mercury, for example, thermosol, as they were saying in, I believe it's DTaP or whatever. Um, then this comes from RFK Jr. People are like, "Well, it doesn't stay in the system, and it's just a small portion." Tiny portion approved by the FDA. It doesn't stay in the system. Well, they found out that, after getting the vaccine, the predominant, like the number that comes out, yes, it's higher. And then they'll test it like a week later and it's not as high. Well, they found out with monkeys that it's not as high because it passed the blood brain barrier and it's now directly in the brain. You're not going to find it in the blood anymore because it is now in the brain. The body did not detox it out naturally because it wasn't naturally supposed to be there. That was a study that RFK Jr. has spoke about it multiple times, and I'm sure that you could find it. I want to say that it was on Rogan that he really went into it. Um, but all these things that are just a little bit, the adjuvants of these vaccines, whether it's aluminum salts or green monkey DNA, African green monkey DNA, yes, that is a thing. All of these things that are adjuvants to the vaccines, they're like, oh, they're just little bits. Well, when you keep adding drops of water to a glass, it eventually gets full. If your body is not detoxing it out, not dumping it out as it goes, it eventually gets full. My daughter's crying. Hold on just a second.
And I was back just in time. Just in time. I wasn't able to hear all that because I was working on something else, but I hope that is helpful. And I think she answered some questions, so we'll leave that as it is today. And she's back, and sorry, I don't know what you said, and I don't know how many questions to answer, so I was just gonna end it for you.
I didn't answer any questions. My daughter started crying. It was just a matter of, I was telling them that these vaccines are not tested to be together. They've never tested them in that way. So when
No
all the people
medication, no
say,
medications of any kind are tested together, other than like two together. That's about as high as they go.
right, exactly. So when you are going to the pediatrician's office based off of the CDC recommended schedule, they call them pokes at a lot of pediatricians' office. They don't want to say, "Oh, we're going to jab your kid with a needle." We'll just call it a poke. Your daughter is getting 4 pokes today. I want people to understand the vastness of that. And that's only one patient appointment. Like that literally, and you have things like the MMR, which that's 3 vaccines in 1 poke. So you're then giving 2 pokes in each leg. You're giving them up to 9 to 12 vaccines sometimes at once. So when people say, "Oh, there's not enough aluminum in there to hurt your child. There's not enough mercury in there to hurt your child. It's studied, it's fine." No. You did not study all 12 of those doses of aluminum together. You did not study how it interacts with the body all together. It's a problem. And like I said, it is not something that is detoxed out of the body naturally. It passes the blood brain barrier, and eventually it creates problems where the neurons do not fire correctly in the brain. I like to talk about it like breaker board. You have all the wires connected, and then you literally put blocks in between the wires, and you expect the children to act correctly or, be able to go through school, and then give them another medication like they did for me on top of it. So it's a huge problem. Um, until, like I said, I hope it comes to a point where we're not cleaning up the mess afterwards. It's not even a spoken about thing. But right now we are cleaning up the mess because, like I said, every single person. How many? What does it take? 7 generations to fully get a vaccine out of it, like out of the getting passed down. I think it was 7.
If that's even legitimately real, I mean, we still see. I mean, who's to say,
Right.
honestly? And I mean, because I mean that research hasn't been done. So I mean, even if it was done, we don't know the effects of that because 7 generations. I don't think we're to that yet, technically.
Right. That's, yeah. But like looking at myself, You know, my great, 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 great grandkids still might have side effects from how many vaccines I was given.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. This is what we're gonna do because my day is crazy right now as we're on screen. I know people have questions, but I have gonna have to run in between, and Nicolette won't have doesn't have access to the control board. So what we'll do is probably on Friday we will have some question and answer on stuff from this week, which I think is actually good anyway. Tomorrow, Karen Kingston's on the first hour, and then I think I'll do another hour of vaccine stuff after that, and then Friday we'll do kind of vaccine stuff as well as probably hit on some other news stories and things like that. But I want to keep it in that world. And then we'll do questions that day just because I don't want to be, I have my mind here and I have my mind out there. So, and I don't want to leave Nicolette stranded because she has kids at home too. So I
Yeah, my
think
kids are crazy right now.
I know. And that's why I don't
we've
want,
just been cooped up in the house because the weather's been kind of yucky and they're bored and just fighting over every single toy possible and you name it. But
totally.
uh there is a new promo code. It is anti-V, ANTIV. You can go to bravetv.store and particularly anything for kids would be under the Save Our Children tab. So you're going to find the heavy metal, which is what we correlate with the autism protocol, and then the kids' parasite protocol as well. Because remember, parasites are a part of it. It is not just heavy metals. You have to make the difference. But not only that, once you detox, you also have to help rebuild the gut, which is what the Flora chewable is for. So
Absolutely. And a real quick change, a subtle change, but it's actually kind of a big change. From today forward, the podcast will not be in order by date. They will now be by episode number. And the reason why is because algorithms despise dates, which I'm finding out. So now this is episode 1740. I did a best as I could job.
count.
Yeah, I did a best as I could job to go back and count as best I could from 2016, 17 to this point forward. So
I don't know how we would go about it. I would love to be able to group things based off of like, you know, somebody's looking for us when we're talking about specifically about the COVID vaccine or when we're specifically talking about nanotech. I wish that there was a better way to be able to like filter throughout all of our videos. I know we put it in the description, but there's not a great way. I would love to have
that's by the
grouping.
medium. I mean, at some point, someday, I would love to dump everything in the back and people log into it, but that is a gigantic project.
Yeah, huge.
I have
I'm
so
still
much
working
video,
on.
it's unbelievable.
Don't think I forgot. The new website looks awesome, guys. When I say that, the new store, not the website itself. It is the website, but not the website. It does look awesome so far. I'm literally, I want to get you excited for this because I'm excited about it and I've taken so much freaking time doing this. You have no clue. I have it to where if you guys are looking for a specific product or you don't know what product to get based off of whatever your diagnosis is or your ailments, you will be able to go through a checklist and it'll recommend things for you of where to start. And I think that's going to be a huge difference because there's so many people that are like, I want to get healthy, I want to go to natural health, but I don't know where to start. So I literally have that where, hey, you were diagnosed with fibromyalgia. Here's this. Like, it's going to be cool. So, and
Love
more
it.
information and directions. So,
Very cool. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We appreciate it. I appreciate Nicolette, even though I was not able to hear it all. And I'll be back at it tomorrow. We'll go over more information. And trust me, I haven't even gotten to, I had a list, a show notes for Monday. I'm like, I'm going to get through all this in Monday. I am only through maybe half of that list. And that list wasn't even, that was just a basic list. I haven't even gotten into the complicated, deep, any of the like super deep vaccine stuff, because I'm rolling it back, slowing it down, going that direction. So we're
You, it's a good thing that you didn't hear the whole thing because I know you and you would have been crying because I started crying. So
good job.
you would have been crying. So
We are literally trying to rebuild a civilization, everybody. So love, help, and serve. For Nicolette, I'm Dr. Dean. It's Brave TV. We will be on for After Dark tonight. Everybody have a great rest of their Wednesday. Thank you for watching. Please, again, share this out to everybody as best you can. Don't try to force their minds open. Just educate and give them information as much as you possibly can. Have a great one, guys. Take care.
bye, everyone.